are you guys?
We're doing good. There's a lot of pressure on you because Charlie really needs a win.
I need a win? What do I need to win?
I don't know.
I don't have a chance. We're joined this week by Eric McClung, who is a fantasy racing, NASCAR racing writer for KFFL.com, also writes fantasy football for KFFL.com. Eric, welcome. Eric, you can follow Eric on Twitter at Eric McClung. All right, Eric, we're going to Charlotte, going to one of those ubiquitous mile-and-a-half racetracks that NASCAR Sprint Cup racing is all about. This is a 500-mile race instead of 6, so it's a little bit different than last time we were at Charlotte. Tell us what your crystal ball shows you for Charlotte this week.
Well, you mentioned Jeff Gordon just a few moments ago, and he's actually been a little bit of an underachiever at Charlotte. Over the last 6 races, he's held an average running position of 13th or better, which is pretty good on 5 occasions. But he only has 3 top 10s in that span of time there. Obviously, he's caught fire, over these last couple of races, finishing, second or third, on a pretty regular basis. So, he's an intriguing option. Matt Kenseth, he's championship, hopes are pretty much done for, it would appear. But coming off a win, last week in crazy race at Talladega, these mile-and-a-half cookie-cutter tracks, especially. I kind of bunched Charlotte together with Texas and Atlanta because they're very, very similar. The banking is pretty much identical over those 3 tracks. And Kenseth has been very impressive over all 3 of those tracks as well. So he has a very good chance to keep momentum going there. Kyle Busch is a very interesting option as well. He obviously isn't in the championship picture, but since 2010 he's finished 3rd or better in 4 of the last 5 races at Charlotte. And in that time, he's led an average of nearly 95 laps per race. So a guy who's on a very regular basis gets out in front and stays there for quite a while. In the chase, as I mentioned, though, obviously he's not eligible for the championship, but he has finished 7th or better in 3 of the last 4 chase races this season. So even though he's not in that hunt, he's still finishing pretty good on a regular basis. And Denny Hamlin's teammate is also a really good option here as well. He's been kind of stringing a lot of wins together here this season. He was a runner-up back in May, the May race at Charlotte. The real positive sign for him is he won the most recent, I mentioned Atlanta, the most recent type of track, most similar to Charlotte. He won that race at Atlanta. So Denny Hamlin also has among the A-listers, definitely has an opportunity to win.
We're talking with Eric McClung. And, Eric, tell me about Brad Keselowski and his acumen at Charlotte. Is this a race where he could further distance himself from his competition, or is this one where he's just going to need to hang on to his bootstraps?
Well, he's been running, pretty much, very good for quite a while. So, his history, he's raced at Charlotte 6 times. He's won a pole last year and finished a career best 5th at the track earlier this season after qualifying 24th. So, certainly no reason to shy away from him. With as good as he's running, I kind of lumped him in with Jimmy Johnson as sort of one of the more obvious guys to go with. The only reason I don't mention him, but absolutely. If you have Brad Keselowski starts available, absolutely no reason to shy away from him this week. The A-list is really, really wide open. There's a lot of guys who have good resumes at Charlotte and the similar tracks that I mentioned. So, there's definitely a lot of possibilities you could go with on the A-list in the Yahoo game. Things kind of thin out a little bit in the B-list and obviously the C-list, but the A-list very wide open this week.
This is we're getting towards the end of the season, and in Yahoo, are you running into scenarios where guys are running out of starts for drivers that would be favored if they were available, or is that not the case in this? I know it happens probably more in the C list at this particular year, but are you seeing that in the other portions of the game or not?
Well, they don't typically. One thing you can do is in your league, you can take a look at the previous week. You obviously can't see who your rivals are starting this week, but you can go and take a look at who they've started in the past, and in that they will show how many starts they have available of that particular driver. So if the guy you're playing, the guy you need to get ahead of, is out of Brad Keselowski starts, then that may be your opportunity to go ahead and start him. As a whole, though, the game, they will show you the percentage, and something I kind of use as a tiebreaker. They will show the percentage owned or rostered of that particular driver. So, you can definitely find a value there. Clint Boyer is a guy that I started just a few weeks ago.
Is that Ryan?
Kind of a tiebreaker situation with Casey Kane, just because he was less started in the Yahoo game.
Is that Ryan Rance crying in the background there? Sorry, Ryan.
Oh.
Had to take a shot.
That was a swipe.
Again, we're talking to Eric McClung, fantasy racing writer for KFFL.com. Okay, Ryan, we've got about 3 minutes to go here. Kind of give us an overview of what your strategy is going into this weekend with your Yahoo team, and then we'll ask you for a specific pick to win before we let you go.
Yeah, well, I covered the A list pretty extensively. The B list, I think, is a more finite group. Casey Kane, this is really his best track. He's won 4 times at Charlotte, including last May. So he's been very good at this track, and also the similar ones like Texas and Atlanta. So he's pretty much a guy you always want to start on these 50-mile-and-a-half tracks. Martin Truex Jr. kind of has more of a mediocre history at Charlotte, but he finished a career best 4th recently at Atlanta. Earlier in the season, he finished 6th at Texas. So he's got that mojo going on these types of 50 cutters, and obviously he's having a breakout year. Very safe option. Speaking of kind of mediocre histories at Charlotte, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Really hadn't done a whole lot since he moved to Hendrick at Charlotte until recently. And also earlier in the season, he finished 10th at Texas, 6th earlier this season in Charlotte, and 7th at Atlanta. So pretty much bank on him for a top 10 this week as well. Greg Biffle's got a pretty good history as well at Charlotte. So those are pretty much the guys I'm locked into on the B list, those 4.
And C-listers?
C-list, Sam Hornish Jr. obviously is a guy who's going to get a lot of play, week in, week out, as good as he's been for the most part as of late. One guy to pay attention to who's on the entry list as they get him ready for next season is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So I like him quite a bit. He's in a good Roush equipment. He's a guy that, some people in your league may not be necessarily paying attention to. His ownership is probably going to be really low. Mm-hmm. So he's probably going to be a very good value. You got to roll the dice on somebody in the C list, as bad as it is. So
Ricky's good on mile-and-a-half tracks too. He's a good driver there.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's definitely a guy that I think at the very least you want to have him rostered, pair him with Sam Hornish Jr. or Eric Almirola, somebody like that, and just kind of see how he practices, see how he qualifies. If he's on par with those guys or better, then I would definitely go with him as a C-lister.
Eric, one question that may come up with players this week is how Yahoo will view Kurt Busch and Regan Smith. Will those guys will they maintain the status they've been up through now, or will that get changed?
In terms of where they qualify, A, B, or C, it doesn't really matter any kind of movement in season. Whatever they start the season with, they're locked into that. They're locked into that particular tier. So it doesn't matter who they're driving for. If they switch teams, if they're in, they're out, whatever the case may be, they're locked into whatever tier they're part of.
And Kurt, I assume, has been a B-list driver. I don't have my list in front of me at the moment.
Yeah. Kurt Busch has been a B-lister, so he'll remain there.
So,
Regan Smith is as well.
So Kurt's moving up to what presumably should be a better ride. Is he a consideration this week at Charlotte as kind of a dark horse, wild card, roll the dice kind of B-list guy?
I mean, over his career, mile-and-a-half tracks have really been a strong suit for him. Mm-hmm. I think that is more of a risky play in Yahoo. In a salary cap format like the ESPN game is, depending on where his value is, which is probably pretty low at this point. The official NASCAR.com game as well as his salary cap. Depending on what his price is in there, he may be a pretty good option there. But I think he'd be a little too risky to go with in the Yahoo game. Okay,
so put you on the spot with about 30 seconds to go. Who's your pick to win at Charlotte?
I think Denny Hamlin. I mentioned, he's been really, you kind of think of him as a flat track guy, but you take a look at what he's done recently over the last 2 or 3 years on these mile and a half tracks. He's really, really come on his own. We've seen how, he'll just, maybe fade into the background for a week or two and then comes back with really, really strong challenges for a win or goes ahead and gets it. So I think this is, one of his weeks.
Well, he needs it. All right, he is Eric McClung. Eric, thanks again for your time this week. Read all of Eric's fantasy sports writing at KFFL.com, both NASCAR fantasy and football fantasy. Eric, we appreciate your time. Talk to you in a couple weeks, man.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, Eric McClung. Follow him on Twitter at Eric McClung.